Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. We're good. All right. Welcome. Welcome to the Weaverville Center for Creative and Healthy Living activity for this evening. I'm going to let Chuck do the introductions here, but I'm going to always have to make a few announcements. As my role as the director of the WICL, as we like to call it. For those of you who are not familiar with who we are and what we do, we're a not-for-profit. Everything that is produced here is done by volunteers who are amazing, and everything that happens here is free of charge. Through our arrangement with the town, who owns and operates this beautiful facility, when we have entertainers, we are allowed to put up a tip jar. So there is, in the back, you will see 2 appreciation baskets. So if you like what you experienced here this evening, please show your generosity to these volunteers, these wonderful performers who are here this evening through the goodness of their hearts. We have some interesting things coming up in the near future. So I'm sorry, I have to read this. Otherwise, Chuck is going to, take me out in the parking lot. You don't want to. He's small, but he's mighty. Anyway, so again, thank you again for being here for Love Stories this evening. In March 26th, the Artisan Players will have another Readers Theater event. It will be Rumors by Neil Simon. I'm sure it will be side-splitting laughter evening. So please bring friends, neighbors, come join us. On April 20th, we have a very special duo who are going to be here. Michael Renal Harrell and Josh Goforth are coming to Weaverville. Some of you might know them. They're internationally known. The special storytelling show on the 20th of April features 2 of the biggest names in the world of storytelling. Michael Renal Harrell and Josh Goforth. Both are headliners at the International Story Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and grace stages regionally, nationally, and all over the world. Since the show will likely draw many people near and far, we're expecting a rare event in entertainment. The law of supply and demand for tickets will definitely kick in. We expect the room to fill and many unable to get in to see these remarkable performers. So since the demand for tickets is likely to outstrip, did you write this? He did. I think he was telling the story, Okay. So anyway, so we're going to have 140 seats available. What's the name of that? Bright seat? Eventbrite. So in the upcoming blog that we send out twice a month, 1st and 15th, we'll have information there so that you will know how to register for these tickets. It'll be free, so that you are guaranteed a place to sit in a room that, according to the fire marshal, we're only allowed to put up 146 chairs. So we try to be a good neighbor. So look for more details, but yeah, that'll be a very exciting evening with these two individuals. What else do we have here? Also, in May, the Wilma Dykeman Legacy. Anyone familiar with Wilma Dykeman? Okay, so good. All right. The Wilma Dykeman's son and daughter-in-law live here in the area, and I got a chance to meet with the 2 of them recently, and really, really amazing kind of things that they're doing. So they have decided to kind of join us in our effort to bring free programming to this venue. So through the Wilma Dykeman Legacy Series, which is something that their new venture for them, we're going to have a group. It's a musical group that's bluegrass in terms of their genre. It's called White Rock Revival. They will be here on Friday, May 5th. And what's interesting about it, again, for those of you who know about Wilma Dykeman, she was all about the land and culture and community and history. So you're going to get some storytelling along with a lot of bluegrass music. So it should be a very interesting evening. So without any further ado, oh, one last thing. If you're not on our mailing list and you would like to get this in the mail together with our blog, there are a bunch of these green business cards in the back. Grab one, send me an email. I'll put you on our list. Again, we publish on the 1st and the 15th of every month. But most of all, just thank you for being here. Thank you for building community with us. This is what this is all about. It's just about neighbors, just joining with neighbors to entertain, to enjoy, to celebrate life. And we are so fortunate to live in this wonderful community. And it's people like Chuck and Cindy and everyone else here that you're going to see this evening that really make it a special place to live. So with that, Chuck, come up here and...
I'm not that tall. By the way, before we get started, I want to give a lot of love to the man that was just here, Tom Balistreri. There are volunteers, and they're really good volunteers, and then there's Tom. He is incredible. All the seats you see here today, Tom put them out. He had a little bit of help, but Tom he just does everything here. And he's, as he says, he's the chairman of WCCL, the Weaverville Center for Creative and Healthy Living. And he says he's the chairman because he puts out all the chairs. Before we get into the show, I have a brief announcement about something sad. We were to have 3 tellers and then Cindy and myself. And you'll see over here that there's 2 tellers and Cindy and myself. The 4th teller was to be Jill Topman, who was the former librarian at the Weaverville Library. Her husband got very seriously ill 2 nights ago, and he's in the hospital, and he's going to have some surgery tomorrow. So obviously Jill can't be here. But I just ask you all to hold a special place in your heart for Jill and her husband. And also a prayer would be helpful too. So thank you. I want to thank you for coming to our love stories. How many here are in love? How many here are next to the person that said they're in love and didn't raise their hand? All right, well, tonight we're going to have a lot of fun. Our first teller is Pat Whitson. Now, Pat, by the way, Pat's neighbors are here. A little bit of applause, please. Man, does she have pull. Pat took my storytelling class back in November and December, and she was one of the stellar graduates. I think there's another one here, too. Where's Margaret? Oh, there she is. She's hiding back there. Hi, Margaret Road. Well, let me tell you about Pat. She retired in 2001 after teaching for 31 years at the Mountain Heritage High School. She's an active member of the Weaverville First Baptist Church, and she is an avid reader, enjoys her book club, and she is a proponent of staying active. And let me tell you, folks, when you're around our age, activity is the key to keep on keeping on. And she also enjoys her varied activities, including walking with her dog. I love the dog's name, Sammy Jack. And she and her husband, Gary, love traveling with several trips abroad, and they just finished up 50 states 2 years ago to celebrate their 50 years of marriage. Talk about love. Pat Whitson, come on up.
I wanted to name the dog Sammy Jack Bob, but Gary said we're going to stop at Sammy Jack. Okay, I've got a road trip to take. I'm going to Memphis, Tennessee. It's not really Memphis, it's Covington, which is outside of Memphis, but that's where some of my family live, and that's where I have to go pick up my mama. I also have to take a piece of furniture to my Aunt Glenda. So I have to take my husband's new truck because I can't get that piece of furniture in my car. But anyway, I've got a road trip, and I don't like it when I have to travel without him, but he could not go. So he's got the truck all gassed up for me and ready to go. Brand new Toyota Tundra. Pretty car, truck. And he is there to bid me goodbye. So he kisses me goodbye, and I'm already missing him because I like for him to be where I am. He tells me he would like to say one thing to me. He said, the one thing I'd like to say is, there are 3 things I would like for you to do for me while you're on this trip. I said, sure, ask away. He said, I would like for you to please don't wreck my new truck. I said, that's easy. Number 2, I would like for you not to get a ticket that would go with the others that you have accumulated. And then number 3, I would like for you to pay attention to your driving, pay attention to other people's driving. Don't get in a wreck and get killed. I love you too much. I want you coming home. I take off in that new Toyota 5-speed. I love driving that truck. So I am on my way. New smell of the truck, great. I've got the Eagles blasting on the radio, singing Take It Easy. I would love to roll the window down and let my long hair blow in the wind, but I don't have long hair, and it would have been just a mess. So I'm going down the road singing to the tune of Take It Easy. All of a sudden, I thought to myself, 3 things he wants me to do. I better get my mind back on driving this truck. So I did. Went to Memphis, no problem whatsoever. Got to my Aunt Glenda's around dinner time. And my little 12-year-old cousin is really thrilled that I'm coming. So he's watching for me. He comes out to meet me, and he's so excited, and I'm excited to see him too. So we meet, hug, kiss like family does. He helps me carry my luggage in. We go up the steps, and oh man, I open that door into the kitchen, and there's my mama frying chicken. What a fabulous smell that is. All of the wonderful things that I grew up with, it was great to smell. Had a wonderful dinner and had a wonderful weekend. Family everywhere. We played games, we told stories, we laughed, the whole bit. Come Sunday afternoon, everybody's leaving. Josh says, can you play a game of basketball with me? I said, sure, I can play basketball with you. Let's go. Get Gary's truck keys because I do not want to leave his truck parked where it is. We need to back it up away from the basketball goal because he told me not to wreck his truck, but I don't even want to dent it with the basketball. He said, okay, I'll get the keys. So he gets the keys. We head downstairs. I said, Josh, being 12, do you ever get to steer the car? He said, yeah, I get to steer. And I said, okay, maybe we could steer going backwards. He said, oh, yeah, maybe. I said, we don't have far to back up. But I said, let's have a little lesson here. So I gave him a little lesson in steering backwards. I said, you want to change the gears? And he said, yeah, I can change the gears. But he said, I don't know what to do. I said, all you have to do is listen to me. I said, I'm going to put the clutch in. You're going to pull it down. You're going to move it over. And then you're going to pull it down again, and that's going to be reverse. And I said, then we're just going to go backwards. I said, we don't have far to go. He said, got it. I put the clutch in. He does the whole thing. I put him over on the side with the gear shift. I'm sitting there and I said, okay, Josh, it's time for you to steer. Put the clutch in. As I'm letting that clutch out, we roll gently backwards. And then I hear, that's the door I forgot to close, up against the brick wall. Okay, I hop out. There's just a little bit paint taken off the edge of the door. Josh gets out of the car and he says, I'm in trouble. I said, you're not in trouble. I'm in trouble if anybody's in trouble. But I said, neither one of us are in trouble. There's just a tiny little bit of paint taken off of the edge of the door. All of a sudden, I try to close the door. There's about 1.5 inch gap in that door. And he started to cry. I said, Josh, you don't cry. My responsibility. I'm the adult here, no problem. You will never be in this scenario. It's just me. But I said, we've got to go get your granddad. Ran in to get Uncle Tom, told him what had happened. He came out, he said, I'll get a crowbar and whatever else I need. I said, I'll go upstairs. I can't take this. So I went running upstairs and just stayed. I'm having confidence in Uncle Tom. He finally came to get me. He says, come on down. You can see what you're going to drive home with. I said, okay. He sounded pretty confident. He came down. I started toward the driver's door. He said, no, you don't go toward the driver's door. You go to the other side. I said, okay. Opened the door. I have never seen such mechanical engineering in my entire life of bungee cords. There was a bungee cord in every orifice of the doors, all the way behind the seat. There was even a rope that he had tied together and brought it around. He said, Pat, this is not going to be a fun trip. You've got 450 miles, 8 to 9 hours, and there's going to be a lot of noise. I can take it, Uncle Tom. I said, my biggest thing is I've disappointed Gary. I said, it breaks my heart. He said, it'll be okay. You'll get there. Next morning, Mama comes down. I get in the truck on her side, crawl over the console, and I realize I'm going to have to do this trick several times today. But we get into the car. We're on a 45-mile-an-hour road for about 10 miles before we even get to Interstate 40. But the noise is so bad, even at that, we can't really listen to the radio. We can't really talk to each other. So we just decide to ride those 10 miles in quiet. And my phone rings. It's my little sweetheart calling to see if I'm okay. I said, yeah, I'm fine. He said, how long ago did you get started? And I said, well, on time. He said, what is that noise I'm hearing? I said, I don't know what that could be. I said, it's probably a bad connection. I'll call you back later. I love you. I love you too. And we hang up. And Mama looks at me like, you liar. And my heart kind of breaks, but I knew I could not tell him what that noise was on the phone. We get to Interstate 40. There's no more new car smell. The smell is exhaust and tar. So we keep riding, and the noise is just awful. Mama says, Pat, I've got to go to the bathroom. Well, I got to go to the bathroom too. So I see a sign. We get off at the exit. I pull up there. It's the worst looking bathroom I've ever seen in my life as far as the station was concerned. They sold nothing. Mama said, Pat, I've got to go. She said, we're just going to go in here, then we'll wash up. So we went in. There was at least 2 stalls, but they didn't sell anything in that gas station. It was just give me your money and fill your car up, and if you have to go to the bathroom, you go. I told Mama, I was in there, and I said, Mama, get toilet paper. Get every bit of toilet paper you can roll off of a roll. She said, what are you talking about? Mama, honey, just get toilet paper. Fill your purse full of toilet paper. We came back out, got in the truck. I did my magic trick of getting over the bungee cords in the console, and I started stuffing. I stuffed toilet paper all the way around that door. Then I got her pocketbook, and I stuffed again. Stuffed and stuffed all the way. Do you know, it wasn't pretty, but we had a better ride home. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Okay, we're almost to North Carolina. We crossed the line. I am so happy to be in North Carolina. Mama's told me all day, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I said, I know, Mama. He's a good man. Oh, about that time, I said, oh, crap, Mama. We've got a ticket. She said, what are you talking about? She didn't even fuss at me because I didn't really say crap. I said another word, but she didn't say one word. I think she was so stunned by the fact that I said we had a ticket. I said, see, he's a highway patrolman coming right over there. Yeah, he's crossing the median. He's coming on this side. I know it's us. At that very moment, I had a breakdown. I just started crying. I cried. I slung snot all the way home. It was not a good feeling. I thought, I've wrecked my husband's truck. Now I'm getting a ticket. What else can I do that is going to disappoint him? Because this is as far as I can go. So I'm just crying. Mama's handing me Kleenex, and I get the registration and the license out because I don't want the patrolman to see me crying. So I just hold it right here at the door, and he takes it. And I thought, I'll get myself fixed up before he comes back. He said, I'll be back in a minute, ma'am. So I thought, I can get myself together. He came back, and I was boo-hooing still. He said, ma'am, it's just a ticket. I said, sir, please don't give me the ticket. And he said, I have to give you the ticket. I'm retiring. I've already called it in. I've already marked it down from an 85 in a 55 to a 65 in a 55. You're not going to lose your license. I said, I don't care about my license. I said, just please don't give me a ticket, ma'am. I'm sorry. Surely a ticket can't be this bad. I said, well, it is. I said, my husband asked me to do 3 things on this trip. I said, number 1 was don't wreck his new truck. Number 2 was don't get a ticket. And number 3, don't get in a wreck and kill yourself. I said, do you see this toilet paper? He said, yes, ma'am, but I was afraid to ask. I said, well, I wrecked the truck. I said, you're fixing it now. I'm getting the ticket. I said, if you'll just give me your gun, I'll make it 3 for 3. He said, ma'am, nothing can be this bad. And I said, yeah, it is. I said, I am disappointing the man I love. But I said, he loves me, and I said, it'll be okay, I think. Well, I cried all the way to Weaverville, boo-hooing. If the amount of Kleenex I used from there to Weaverville, if I had messed up the other door, we could have stuffed it with that Kleenex. Gary saw us coming, pulling in the driveway. He came out to meet me. I roll down the window. He sees that I am beside myself. He said, what is wrong? And I said, look at your truck. He said, Pat, I can fix the truck. Just get out and tell me what happened. So he goes over and helps Mama out of the car. Hugs her, helps me out of the car, and hugs me. We go in the house. I tell him what happened except minus Josh. I was not going to put Josh in the middle of this. But you know, he said, it's okay. We all have issues. We all have problems. I didn't tell him about the ticket at that very moment. I waited till we got over this part of the story. But you know, after I told him about the ticket, and then I told him what I said to the policeman or the highway patrolman, he was so sweet and generous. He really does love me. 52 years together, and he really does love me. And I'm going to say that I bet that patrolman that night said, I wished I had just let this woman go. I could have cared less if she was doing 85 and a 55. I'm close to retirement. I could have just let her go. Why didn't I let her go? But anyway, I never told Gary about Josh until Josh was about 25 to 30 years old. And we still talk about him backing up and steering. Someday I'll come back and tell you about taking my mama to court with me. She was 82 at the time. Thank you.
Good grief. Pat Woodson, everybody. Pat Woodson. Pat and I have one thing in common. Lots of tickets. They'll stop me and say, hey, Chuck, good to see you again. You know the drill. Just pull out and we'll give you the ticket. But that's another story. Our next teller is someone very, very, very special. I met Sherry Lovett through the Asheville Storytelling Circle, about 6 years ago. And I am here to tell you, she is one of the kindest, sweetest human beings you can find. And in this day and time, that's exactly what we need. Let me tell you a little bit about Sherry. She loves stories and people and bringing the two together. She's been performing and teaching for over 20 years. Her mission is to inspire, encourage, entertain, and connect with people through the art of storytelling. She performs the old stories, tapping into her Scottish-Irish ancestry and pulling from her North Carolina heritage, which goes from these mountains all the way to the sea. Who knows, she might sing an old ballad, take you on an adventure with King Arthur, or have you laughing over the antics of Jack. No matter where you go on your storytelling journey, or if you write it in a journal, you can do that too, but wherever you go in your storytelling journal, you can trust that she will guide you with great love. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, Sherry Lovett. There you go.
Okay. I'm a basket case. It's my favorite, one of my favorite jokes. I am so happy to see two people I'm happy to see more than two people in this audience, but Tyler and Laura are here from the school where I work. So I teach English and storytelling and teaching really go hand in hand, apparently, right? And I'm guessing getting tickets as well. Because I got 3 tickets in 1 year, and I'm still married to the same man. So I am so happy to be here with you all this evening. And I'm going to do 2 of the 3 things that Chuck read in my bio there. I want to share an old ballad with you. So in the Appalachian Mountains, the old ballads are called the love songs. And most of them are murder ballads. And they come from Scotland, Ireland, and England with the people who came and settled here. And they had their voice with them, and they sang. They sang through the hard times, and these songs have been passed down. Some of them are not murder ballads, and some of them are funny. And I want to share one that's funny, because love is complicated. So, this is the Appalachian version of this song. I come home the other night as drunk as I could be. There was a horse standing in the stable where my horse ought to be. Said, come here, my little wifey, explain this thing to me. Why's a horse there standing in the stable where my horse ought to be? Well, you blind fool, you drunk old fool, now can't you plainly see? That's only a milk cow your granny give to me. Well, I've traveled all around this world 100 times or more, but a saddle on a milk cow I ain't never seen before. I come home the other night as drunk as I could be, and there was a hat hanging on the rack where my hat ought to be. Said, come here, my little wifey, explain this thing to me. Why's a hat there hanging on the rack where my hat ought to be? Well, you blind fool, you drunk old fool, now can't you plainly see? That's only a dish rag your granny give to me. Well, I've traveled all around this world 100 times or more, but a J.B. Stetson dish rag I ain't never seen before. I come home the other night as drunk as I could be, and there was some breeches laying on the floor where mine ought to be. Said, come here, my little wifey, explain this thing to me. Wine and breeches laying on the floor where mine ought to be. Well, you blind fool, you drunk old fool, now can't you plainly see? That's only a flour sack your granny sent to me. Well, I've traveled all around this world 100 times or more, but a zipper on a flour sack I ain't never seen before. I come home the other night as drunk as I could be, and there was a head laying on the pillow where my head ought to be. Said, come here, my little wifey, explain this thing to me. Why's a head there laying on the pillow where mine ought to be? Oh, you blind fool, you drunk old fool, now can't you plainly see? That's only a cabbage head your granny sent to me. Well, I've traveled all around this world 1,000 times or more, but a mustache on a cabbage head I ain't never seen before. And that old ballad is called, Seven Nights Struck, but you can only sing 4 verses in public. And I was doing this ballad at Wild Acres Retreat Facility where I was the resident storyteller for a number of years. And people come from all over the world to that facility. And there was a woman from England, and she was so excited. She came up after that, and she's like, oh my gosh, here's the English version of that ballad. And so she sang the English version to me. It's just really cool how these stories came and have been passed down, and we have a certain sound here, but they originated there, and it's just a fun connection. So we're going to go back there, though, because I want to tell you, in fact, a King Arthur story. I mean, what is more romantic than the court of King Arthur, right? So once, long ago, King Arthur and his companions were making their way through a field along the edge of Inglewood Forest. They were hunting a fine white hart, a deer. King Arthur saw it go into the forest, and he told his companions to wait, and he alone went into the dark forest. He found his prey, he let his arrow fly true, and he was going to claim his prize when before him there stood an enormous knight in dark armor. King Arthur, I am Sir Somerjour, and you have wrongly given my lands to Sir Gawain. Now I will kill you. Wait, I'm dressed only in my hunting greens. Let me go and don my armor so we can do battle as is fitting to knights. King Arthur, I am loath to let you go, but for a bit of sport, I will let you go if you promise to return here in 1 year's time, dressed as you are now, with the answer to the riddle. What is it that every woman wants most? And if you have the right answer, you'll be free. And if not, I will kill you, and nothing will stop me. Well, what could King Arthur do? He made the promise. The night disappeared. King Arthur took his prize out and rejoined his companions with a heavy heart. None of his companions noticed his countenance, save one, Sir Gawain, who was King Arthur's most loyal, most brave knight. My king, what troubles you? And so King Arthur told him what had happened. My king, do not worry. We will go and we will ask all the women of the land this question. We will find the right answer. And that's exactly what they did. They took off and went all over the kingdom asking women this question. Now, I've told you that Sir Gawain was King Arthur's most brave, most loyal knight. But you should also know that he was King Arthur's most handsome knight. With wavy blonde hair that fell to his shoulders, eyes as blue as a robin's egg, and muscles that rippled beneath his tunic. And so Sir Gawain had no trouble getting the women to tell him what it was they wanted. King Arthur had no trouble either. And soon they had 2 books full of answers. Still, King Arthur didn't feel good about these answers. I mean, some women said what they wanted most was to be forever young. Some women said what they wanted most was to be the most beautiful woman in the land. Some women said what they wanted most was a lusty man. Some women said what they wanted most was wealth of their own. And the answers went on and on like that, but none of them felt quite right to King Arthur. So about a week before he was to meet Sir Gromer Somerjor, he said he felt like he needed to go one more time and look, leave no stone unturned. Sir Gawain wished him well, and King Arthur set off. Now, along his way, he saw what looked to be a deformed horse coming toward him. But he soon realized it was not a deformed horse. It was a horse with the most hideous woman he'd ever seen riding upon it. She had a huge head, hair sticking up on end all over it. Her eyes were as big as saucers and drooped on her cheeks. Her nose was red and bulbous and oozing slime down into the corners of her mouth, which was held agape by 2 huge yellow tusks, one pointing up, one pointing down. Her head sat on her body as though she had no neck. Her body was barrel-shaped with no discernible female features, and at the ends of her arms, her hands were like roots. King Arthur, will you not even speak to me? Lady, I am loath to look upon you. You would not speak to me such if you knew who I was. And who are you? I am Dame Ragnell, and I have the answer to the riddle which you seek. And what is it? For a price, King Arthur. And what would you have? I would have Sir Gawain to marry me. That is not for me to offer. But you can ask King Arthur, and if he agrees, I will give you the answer. Well, what could King Arthur do? He did not wish to lay this upon Sir Gawain because he knew exactly what Sir Gawain would say, and it was as he knew it would be. My king, even if this woman is as hideous as you say, it is little price to pay to save your life. And so he agreed. And it came the day for King Arthur to meet Sir Gromer Somerjour. Along the way, he met Dame Ragnell. The promise was made, the answer was given. King Arthur went into the dark forest of Inglewood, and there before him stood that huge knight in dark armor. King Arthur, have you the answer? Now, King Arthur gave Sir Gromer Somerjour the 2 books, hoping that the answer would be in one of those books. Ha! King Arthur, none of these is right. Now I will kill you. Wait. I have one more answer. And he gave the answer that Dame Ragnell had given to him. Ah, curse Dame Ragnell. I know it is she who has given you this answer. You're free to go, and I'm sure we'll never meet again. And he was gone. King Arthur left the forest. He met Dame Ragnell, and the 2 made their way to the castle. And as they made their way, everyone came out to watch them. All of the women were weeping because they wanted Sir Gawain for themselves, but they were also weeping for Sir Gawain. Dame Ragnell, she insisted on having a grand public wedding. And she insisted on wearing the finest gown, which only threw her hideousness into sharper relief. And after the wedding, she insisted on a grand feast. There was no shortage of food in King Arthur's kingdom, and every bread, vegetable, meat that came across her plate, she skewered it with her long claws and shoveled it into her gaping mouth. Her manners were such that some lost their appetites and others lost their meal entirely. And then it was time to go to the bridal chamber. Sir Gawain had his back to the room. He was drinking a glass of wine when he heard from behind him, "Will you not even kiss me on our wedding night?" And he turned. What is this? What sorcery is this? For now before him there stood the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She had golden red hair that flowed like a silken river down her back. Her eyes were as dark as the forest. Her skin was alabaster. Her lips were the pink of roses. It's me, my husband. It's Dame Ragnell. And you, my husband, you have broken the spell that my brother, Sir Gromer Somerjour, placed upon me. For it could only be broken by a knight who would willingly marry me. But my love, my husband, it is only partly broken. You see, I can either be beautiful by night and hideous by day, or hideous by night and beautiful by day. You must decide. What was Sir Gawain to do? If he chose for her to be hideous by day, she would be mocked, ridiculed. It would be awful for her. But if he chose for her to be hideous by night, it would be awful for him. My wife, this is not for me. This must be your choice. My husband, you have broken the spell entirely, for you have given me what it is that every woman wants most, my own way. Here's to a woman's choice, my friends. Thank you.
Hold on a second, folks. Besides producing, I'm the IT guy. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Well, Sherry Lovett, one more time. Yes. Our last two tellers are very familiar to me. I'm Chuck Fink, and I tell stories, and I produce stories, and I teach storytelling classes, and let's see, what else do you want to know? Probably nothing. So let me introduce my wife, my partner, the most amazing woman I have ever met in my life, Cynthia Berryman Fink, or Cindy. Cindy retired from Dcim in 2008, and we moved here. Is she correcting me? And when I say she retired from a career, she had an esteemed academic career at the University of Cincinnati, where she taught. She was a dean, she was a provost, all these things. Gave it up like that to come here and start a whole new life. And part of that new life you're going to hear in the story. But she is something special. She's become a storyteller. She's an author. And most of all, she puts up with moi. Cindy Berryman Fink. It all started in 1979, January of 79. It was in Mount Adams, which is next to downtown Cincinnati, and my buddy and I were going to a basketball game. It was really bad, so we decided we were going to go to a special bar in Mount Adams. It's like an English pub. It's called the Blind Lemon. Thank you for not reminding me. I almost forgot it. The Blind Lemon, and it was so cool. There's a restaurant on the top floor, but you go around the back, and when you go in the place, it's dark, it's crowded, and you can't even hear yourself think over the din of the conversation and the music. My buddy Gary and I walk in, and the place is packed, and then we found 2 seats. Now, Gary was kind of a tall guy, and the 2 women that were sitting at the seats, one was tall, so I called her the lady with the big bones. Gary, why don't you sit next to her? And I was able to sit next to the cutest little thing.
And it was a very crowded bar, as Chuck said, so we were seated elbow to elbow, really, so we had to talk to each other. And we started chatting, and I told Chuck that I was new to Cincinnati, and he asked, well, where are you from? And I said, well, I was born in Fall River, Massachusetts. And he immediately launched into his Kennedy impression. On behalf of the people of Cincinnati, we want to welcome you to this bar. And I thought, oh, that is so cute. That is so funny. I love that he did that. And I thought he was very cute as well. I still do.
By the way, as a kid with his face, I got this all the time from grandmothers. But we fanned the flames of our romance until and through the Cincinnati Reds baseball season.
And that fall, I had a friend come into Cincinnati. He was a sports photographer for Sports Illustrated. And so he gave me a camera and a press pass so that I could pretend to be a photographer. And he took me to the Reds-Pirates playoff game. And we were sitting right there on the field in the dugout. The dugout, yes. I was not a baseball fan.
Can you tell?
And there I am in the dugout at a Reds-Pirates playoff game. And I didn't even care about baseball.
And I used all of my power and influence. I ended up with a friend with 2 seats in the last row of the red seats in right field, otherwise known as the last row of the nosebleed section. But I brought my binoculars. Oh, not to watch the game. I had my binoculars focused on that dugout to see what that ne'er-do-well photographer was doing with my girlfriend. And I discovered that he was pretty well behaved, but I still was terribly jealous. So it was about, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks later, thanks to Sports Illustrated, I got down on one knee and I begged Cindy to marry me.
And I, of course, said yes. And we were married in August of '80 in Rhode Island in the old Stonebridge Inn. And it was old. It was a Revolutionary War hotel that was practically falling apart. Not a fancy wedding, about 65 guests. We were married by a justice of the peace. I had borrowed the wedding gown from his sister, and I guess we didn't know we weren't supposed to do this, but we actually left the wedding in separate cars.
But we finally merged the two cars and drove one, and we were going to go to Nova Scotia for our honeymoon. You know, Massachusetts, Nova Scotia, as they say there, Nova Scotia. It didn't seem that far, but we were going to spend the night at the Sheraton Terra, just south of Boston. We go there. It's after midnight. I want to take my bride into our honeymoon suite, and I wanted to do the right thing, carry her through the threshold. So I take the key, open the door, put it down, look around. It looked great. I turn around to pick up Cindy when the door closes. Thanks to a security guard, we spent our passionate night on our honeymoon. Thanks to the security guard. Otherwise, we would have never made it. But we made it. We pulled through.
Yeah, we were locked out, but it worked out okay. So the next day, we're driving up to Nova Scotia, but we stop in Maine on the way, of course, and we discover Acadia National Park. Oh, spectacular. So we said, well, let's stay a night here, and then a second night and a third night. We never did get to Nova Scotia. But so we stayed at Acadia, and we hiked along the beautiful rocky beach there and bicycled and ate delicious seafood. And then we asked a couple to take a picture of us. We said we'd just gotten married a few days earlier. Would they take our picture? And they said, do your parents know you eloped? We'd been married a few days earlier. Chuck was 30 when we got married. I was 28, so I guess we looked younger than our age then, and maybe we still do now.
Yeah. And in our 70s, it's not a bad thing to do. Well, after that, we had been married about a year, and it was time to take our first vacation. Now, Cindy is an ultimate researcher, especially for travel. And today it's all about Airbnbs. I think we've been to 70 of them. She's that good. But anyway, back then, we found a place called Sanibel Island in Florida. And why it was so special, miles of beach. And if you're into shelling, picking up seashells, it's the best in the whole United States. Plus, it had a bike trail.
So we rented bikes, and if you've been there, it's a paved bike trail right along the shoreline, right along the beach. So Chuck was in the lead, and I'm behind him on our rented bikes, and I'm looking at the sand dunes, and I'm looking at the waves, and I'm looking at the seagulls, and slam, I crash into him. He falls onto the pavement. I fall onto the pavement. We're bleeding, and he yells at me.
What the hell? Why did you run into me?
And I said, I was just bicycling so close to you because I love you. And we both laughed about that and got back on our bikes and had the rest of the trip was just fine. But I got out of being yelled at by saying, because I loved you.
Could I stay angry at a face like this? No way.
Or that.
Well, that was Sanibel. And it was about, maybe 4.5 years later, and it was about to be the birth of our first son, Andrew Berryman Fink, otherwise known as Drew.
And Chuck, of course, was going to watch the birth, as, you know, fathers do. But I had to have an emergency C-section. And they let him into the surgical room and said, stand behind this area. And he was going to watch the C-section, watch the birth of our son. Well, he had a camera, and he kept getting into the surgical field right above my belly with the camera. And they had to keep pushing him back and saying, no, you got to stand behind the curtain there.
And in my defense, I thought it was going to be a regular birth. What did I know? Well, I guess it was about maybe 4 years later, our second son, Greg, came into this world. But this time I left the camera at home.
And if we're talking about love, there's nothing like the birth of children that is an incredible moment of love for the children, for each other. And of course, that was such a special time, the birth of our two sons. But we also very much loved our parenting years. Drew is now 38, Greg is 34, but boy, we love the parenting years, playing with them, teaching them things. We actually homeschooled them for a couple of years. And they played sports. We took them to their sporting events. They came to sporting events with us. We did vacations together. And it's just a very, very special time where we bonded with each other over our family.
Yeah, and the high school years were a little bit tough, but we managed. Now, we're grandparents, and we're going through the same wonderful feelings of watching our grandchildren grow, playing with them, and all that kind of great stuff. In fact, Drew is bringing his two children, 5-year-old Louise and about 18-month-old Sammy, in at the end of March just to play. But this time, we can leave them with their parents. Yay!
The other thing when we're thinking about 42 and a half years of marriage, something that to me and to us really shows love is how you take on the interests of the other person. You share the things they love, even if you don't love it. And one example of that, very early on, when I first met Chuck, he was always one with an incredible imagination. He would look up at clouds and say, "Oh, look, can you see the squirrel in that cloud?" And I'm looking, no, not really. "Oh, look, there's an elephant in the cloud. There's the trunk and there's the tail." And I would study the clouds and I could never see anything in the clouds. But over time, with his patience and his coaching, I now can see things in clouds. And we do a lot of that. We sit on our back deck looking at the clouds, and he points out things and I can see them. And so I really am so grateful and so thankful for Chuck, for you developing my imagination.
Well, thank you. And by the way, I also developed something that was never in my consideration. Cindy has been taking yoga for maybe 20 years. And I always thought I called it yogurt. It just didn't seem that big a deal. How was your yogurt class today? That was good. And I just kind of laughed at it. Then we moved here, and I've taken up yoga. In fact, I'm in this very room with Cindy typically every Monday and Wednesday at 10 o'clock for a wonderful yoga class taught by, where's Wendy?
Right over there.
Wendy.
Yes.
She is the best yoga instructor. But because of Wendy and because of Cindy, my golf swing has never been better.
Speaking of golf, that was something I got interested in because of Chuck. He'd been playing golf his whole life since he'd been a teenager. And one year, out of the blue, for Mother's Day, he buys me a set of golf clubs. Okay, all right. Guess I better take some golf lessons, and I did. And we played golf together over the years, and we played golf with our sons, and I had women friends that I played golf with, and I took up golf, really, because Chuck loved golf.
Well, she did. And by the way, one of us has a hole-in-one.
I got the hole-in-one. I got a hole-in-one.
And she never lets me forget it. Well, now Cindy took up skiing. And by the way, I have balance issues. I'm a klutz. So to satisfy Cindy, I took up skiing. And I got to tell you, going downhill, I was aces. No problem at all. But then there's this thing called stopping. I couldn't do that at all. So I would go down the slopes and I would yell at everybody, "Get out of my way, I can't stop, get out of my way." And then I would hit a building. Now you would know it would be me because behind me was this trail of red stuff. What's it called?
Blood.
Oh yeah, blood. That was my calling card.
Only Chuck could bleed in the snow. Now, you might be thinking, how does someone bleed in the snow? We were skiing one time at Snowshoe, West Virginia, when our sons came to where I was skiing and said, Mom, hurry, you better come. Dad's bleeding in the snow. So I go to the bunny slope where he is. He had poked himself in the head with the pole, and he was bleeding in the snow.
If anyone wants lessons next December, just check it with me. Well, yeah, I bled in the snow. But there was another thing that Cindy helped me with. Cindy is a crazy pet lady. And when I say a crazy pet lady, she went from academe, never having business experience, and when she moved here, she started Pet Care Extraordinaire, where she takes care of dogs and cats and iguana and horses and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. But because of Cindy's love of animals, I now am a crazy pet man. I love our little pooper, Rooney, our little kitty cat, Bocce, and every other cat and dog we've ever had, all thanks to Cindy.
Oh. And the animals love you too. In fact, today the cat was laying on your chest when you were trying to move.
And kissing me too.
And that's pretty amazing because Chuck never had pets at all growing up. You'd had what, a goldfish?
I had a goldfish. And by the way, saying goodbye to a goldfish in the toilet is a lot easier than saying goodbye to your real pets.
One other thing I took up because of Chuck, a little bit begrudgingly, but it worked out okay, was watching football. I had never been to a football game in my life. My high school didn't have a football team. My college didn't have a football team. But Chuck loved his Cincinnati Bengals. And so one year for a present, birthday or whatever, I got him season's tickets to the Cincinnati Bengals. Little did I know that would turn into a decade of us going to Cincinnati Bengals games together, a decade. So I took up football because Chuck took up watching football because Chuck loved football.
I just want to add one note about the Bengals. Those 10 years were not the Bengals of today. They've gone to Super Bowls and playoffs and have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all these great players. This was the Bengals that at the time had the worst record in all of sports. They were just terrible. But can you ask for a better wife? No. Well, I guess it was maybe 2020. It was time for our 40th anniversary. Now, we missed Nova Scotia on the first, on our honeymoon, so we decided we were going to go back in 2020. But something got in the way. It's called COVID-19. Now, I mentioned earlier that Cindy is this ace at doing research and finding Airbnbs. It was wonderful because she found a place outside of Clayton, Georgia, in Tate City that seemed perfect. It was just a beautiful, beautiful place. But here's how you get there. Here's the instructions we were given. You go down the main road, and then you find a one-lane gravel road, and you turn onto the one-lane gravel road for 10 miles. Then you get to Tate City. And by the way, Tate City population, 0. That's what a bustling metropolis it was. So you go to the grove of trees, and then you turn left. These are the directions. Then you turn left, you cross the river, and then you go around, and eventually you find that Airbnb. Wait, did I say cross the river? I meant drive through the river. Oh, it was a lot of fun.
It was pretty remote. We had this lovely cabin on the Tallulah River, as remote as you could possibly get. Pretty safe from COVID that way. And we had a great time. We had drinks out by the river. We hiked. We played games in the cabin. And the night sky there was fantastic because it was so remote. We loved seeing the night sky. So it worked out pretty well. We didn't get to Nova Scotia, but we were together. And I guess that's the point. And when you're in love, it doesn't matter where you are as long as you're together and having a good time. And we did that in Tate City, population 0.
Well, there was one thing, though. We also had this wonderful activity, I think on our last or second to last day, horseback riding. So we went to the stables, and there were about 9 of us, 8 women and me. So I get the stallion, Old Coop. Old Coop was a feminist. He took me down by the river, by the trees, and tried to knock me off. But as long as I had health insurance and a will, I knew I would be okay. Welcome to Tate City, Georgia, folks.
Now, the absolutely most amazing example of love in our 42 years of marriage came very early on, shortly after we were married. At our wedding, my mother, Gertie, who was widowed, was very, very ill. She was actually dying of stage 4 colon cancer. And a few weeks after our wedding, my uncle calls and says, she's not doing well at all. She should not be living alone. And I get off the phone. She's in Massachusetts. We're in Cincinnati. I'm sobbing. What am I going to do? What are we going to do? Chuck, who had only met her twice, I think, in his life, said she's going to come and live with us. And I went and I got her, and she came to Cincinnati, came to our apartment. We'd just been married a month or so, and she came to live with us and to die with us. And it was an amazing experience of love for her and love and bonding for each other. When you think of handling that, what we went through, that young, that early in our marriage, I will be forever grateful for Chuck's love and generosity of having her come and live with us.
And I am actually even more grateful that Gertie came to live with us and teach us how to die with dignity. She was a tough New Englander. Gertie and Cindy, 2 peas in a pod. They loved life, loved to have fun, loved to play games, and just absorbed everything. And by the way, tough as nails. These are 2 New Englanders. They don't get any tougher than that. But Gertie and I had a very special relationship. I was her drinking buddy. Cindy had the tough task of taking care of her physical needs. But Gertie and I were just buddies. I remember it was about 2 days before she was going to die. And I went up to her and I said, "Gertie, how you feeling?" She said, "I can't complain." Can you imagine that? 2 days before you're dying, you're racked with pain, terrible pain. And the answer to the question, "How are you doing?" "I can't complain." Then it was the night before she died, and I said, "Gertie, how you doing?" And she asked me to come forward, and she whispered, "I want a beer." Let me say that loud. "I want a beer." By this time, she could not drink through a bottle, a can, a straw, a glass, anything. And then it hit me. I ran to the bathroom. I stifled through, or rode through the medicine cabinet, and I found it. I found that eyedropper. I took her favorite beer, RWB, red, white, and blue.
Crappy beer.
But that was Gertie. I put it in that beer and just put it around her lips. And that was the last beer that Gertie Berryman had. Her wish was to be cremated and to have her ashes spread at her favorite beach in beautiful Westport, Massachusetts. It's the most beautiful town I've ever seen. Because I was the only non-family member, I was asked, and I was so pleased, to spread Gertie's ashes. It was March along the Atlantic. It was kind of cold, to say the least. But I took that container of ashes, I kissed it, and I bent down on a jetty and gently spread the ashes, when a huge wave came over and knocked me into the cold Atlantic. I came up laughing my ass off because Gertie got the last laugh on me. Well, after 42 years of marriage, we don't need Valentine's Day. We don't need special occasions. We express our love every single day. We're best friends.
Sacrifice,
Sharing
adventure,
and play.
laughter,
And
love.
mwah. Thank you all. thank you all. And I want to bring all the tellers back. Pat, Sherry, and the other one. I forget her name. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Once again, if you really enjoyed what you experienced this evening, please let us know. Again, if there's other activities that you would like us to sponsor, please let us know. Please write to us. And I just have to say something to Miss Wendy. We've never met, but yet we have been communicating through email for probably a better part of a year. When you started, how many students did you have?
It's never been less than 15, but now we have over 30.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's just, and thank you. Again, because it's volunteers like Miss Wendy, volunteers like all of you who make what happens here so wonderful. So thank you. If you liked what you saw tonight, again, there's an appreciation basket in the back. If I could ask one last favor for the able-bodied, these chairs do not put themselves away by themselves. So again, I'll just say no more than 9 chairs to a sled. And if you just load them up, I'll make sure they get into the chair barn. But any help that we can get as a volunteer would be great. Thank you again for showing up. Thank you for listening to these wonderful love stories. And again, have a great rest of the evening and a wonderful February. And hopefully we'll see you for more activities. Good night now.